What are you painting? I'm painting this old building. It's kind of a cool old building. I like the architecture. And in the morning, the sun hits it just right at this time of year. And I want to try and capture that and put that on my canvas so that other people can kind of enjoy it. I think it'll be really cool to tell this kind of story with this picture that I'm painting. You know what it really needs? No, I don't. Like, it shouldn't need anything other than what I'm trying to tell, but like, what's your opinion? It needs a space shuttle in it. Really, a space shuttle. Yeah, in the background with a giant like rainbow flag on the tail. Like, why would I do that? Like, how is that going to add to what? In fact, if I did that, it's going to detract entirely from what I'm trying to capture. The essence of this beauty of this building, this old rundown building, with the way that the light hits it in the morning. What does a space shuttle like? What does any of that have to do with any of this? Well, you know that it'll be cool to add that. It's going to add more to the story. Like, no, it doesn't add more. In fact, it actually does the opposite. It makes it like detracts from what I'm trying to explain with this picture. The way you can tell propaganda from art is that what I just explained to you. And I'll unpack it a tiny bit. Propaganda is taking art and then using it to try and drive a narrative that you're trying to deliberately push. Politics aside, that's what ends up happening. And you can use that for anything, by the way. Okay? Even for good. You can even use it for good propaganda. It's like, but that's what ends up happening. Art, true art, and artists usually accidentally tell you the truth. And in fact, it actually even sometimes goes against the artists themselves, where even the artist is like, man, I don't know. I mean, right? Because they accidentally tell the truth to the viewer or to whoever's seeing your art, whatever it is, or listening to your art, or reading your book or whatever. You accidentally tell people a bunch of truth that even you didn't maybe understand completely. Good example of this was like there was this interview with Spielberg one time, and he was talking. The guy talking to him was pointing out, like, you know, your mother was a concert pianist. You know, she played piano professionally, and his father was a computer programmer. And in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, somebody pointed this out. They're like, wait a minute here, hold on. The ship was communicating through technology and through music at the same time. Do you think there was something subconscious going on there between the communication between your mother and father? And Spielberg had said, not until just this very moment. I didn't until just now. Like, yeah, that's sort of a subconscious thing. And true artists, that's what happens, is it goes into the subconscious, and then it comes out unfiltered. It just makes its way out into there, and then people see it, and they're either offended by it, they love it, they hate it, whatever. I mean, like, it doesn't make any difference, but they accidentally usually tell you some kind of subconscious truth. And that's how you can kind of tell the difference. When you start putting a bunch of extra shit in there, it stops being art and it starts becoming narrative-driven propaganda bullshit, where you're just trying to push some kind of agenda and you're not really adding to the story at all. There's a lot of TV shows, for example, and a lot of movies and such that have fallen afoul of this, where it turns into where you take a perfectly good storyline and turn it into your typical hackery bullshit that everybody looks at and goes, dude, this is all network note bullshit. This is all executive shit pushing this. This has nothing to do with the actual story being told. Like, the story being told didn't need to have a bunch of extra added bullshit onto it. You already had a perfectly good storyline. You didn't need to add a whole bunch. All you did, in fact, was detract from the story you were telling that the time could have been better used to tell it from a different perspective, especially if you're trying to tell stories, for example, because this is really all the rage right now. We've moved beyond, if you're a writer and you're trying to go, the Nietzsche route and go beyond good and evil, if that's what you're trying to do, and you're trying to say, well, let's tell the story from the villain's perspective. Let's tell it from the so-called good guy's perspective. In fact, let's blur the lines between the two. If you're going to try and do that, then you have to do it in an honest way. And you have to do it without judgment of your characters. True good writers don't judge their characters. They just let their characters do what they're going to do. And that's it. And whether you agree or disagree with your characters, whatever their motivation is, you're still trying to see it from their perspective, because that's important. And that's why you can actually have connection with characters that aren't exactly the best of characters. Good example, I mean, that I can think of that comes to mind is guys like Tywin Lannister, or even Stannis Baratheon, even Joffrey, using Game of Thrones, for example, the TV show, not necessarily the Ice and Fire books. I'm talking about the show, because more people have seen the show. So, like, these are characters, or the Jaime Lannister character. These are characters that are complex, and they're not exactly really good people, but they're honest to what that character is. And adding a bunch of crazy shit wouldn't have made anything better. You just let them do what they're going to do. A lot of shows and movies recently have been guilty of this, and it's just getting worse. In fact, the more that you're adding to it, the more you're detracting from being able to tell an honest story and see it from another perspective. Like legitimately see it from another, not backhanded. Not like this weird, like, well, you know, they're kind of like, no. You tell it to where it's actually, that's how you get your tragedy. Because that's what you're trying to express, is that you have to be able to see it from all sides, even the sides you don't like. In fact, almost especially the sides you don't personally like. That's what allows you to have compassion. That's where empathy comes from. That's the nascent beginning of empathy. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but I mean, it's the truth. That's where it comes from. It's just being able to see it from the other person's point of view. This is like Dale Carnegie 101. This is like basic shit, right? That's how it works. So even if you disagree with somebody, you don't like them, it doesn't mean that they're not compelling and interesting, and it also doesn't mean that they don't have a point. Because sometimes people that you disagree with a lot, they still have a good point to make. And it's still something that's worth listening to. But unfortunately right now in this world, and this is actually the tragic reality that's going on right now because it's filtered out into the general population, is that if you disagree with one thing that somebody says, all of a sudden everything that they've said is complete trash. That is extremely dangerous. That's extraordinarily dangerous. Right? That's super dangerous to do stuff like that, because now you're missing out on, because now what you're saying is that, well, the human condition no longer matters. All that matters is what I agree with personally. That is so dangerous to think like that. Because it means that you can't be taught anything either. That's what that means. It means you will never be able to learn anything. This has nothing to do with finances. This is just reality. This just has to do with everything to do with fucking life. And that's why I bring this up, because this is becoming very dangerous. And what sucks is that only people who speak English will understand what I'm saying and understand probably the mannerisms with which I just said it.